the R83 of 2022. And here we are looking at the procurement of goods and work and services by or on behalf of the department in a manner that was not fair, contrary to applicable legislation, manual and policies. And we are also looking at any effective performance or late performance by service provider.
Did you test my quantity?
Good afternoon, colleagues. Is it morning? How Chief Whip, you are here? Oh my God. Only the media is invited. Should I call a jumper protection? You are welcome, Chief Whip. Now, colleagues from the media, greetings. Sorry to interrupt your very important dialogue there at the back, Marianne and Andisiwe. I apologize. Colleagues, there is a slight delay. Yes, I know. I expected that reaction, but please allow my profuse apology for this delay. I thought that it is because of this delay I was literally there to ensure that I come with the people who are supposed to brief you, but they are still stuck in a meeting that they cannot get out of. So I thought that it is important that we are upfront with you so that we don't leave you hanging around for extended time. So we are going to start exactly now at 12. At 12. So I thought it is important that we are upfront with you about the delays. But 12 now is in 40 minutes time or so. We apologize for the delay, but we will start exactly at 12 o'clock. That is the new time. Sorry for the inconvenience that this would have caused. Thank you very much.
1, 2, mic test, 1, 2.
Where is Parliament TV? Channel 408? Must rise, proudly so. Oh, you are here. Why are you hiding? We are about to start. Any other channel that is running this live? Oh, sorry. I had the same problem when I was arriving. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, welcome. Also welcome to the executive management of Parliament that is present here. And then of course to recognize in the front seat the Chief Whip of the official opposition. You are welcome, Madam. We did say that we will start at 12, and I think it's almost, or it's around 12, if not 12 exactly. So let me once again apologize for the earlier delay in the starting time, and thank you very much for your patience and for making a point that you return to this meeting room. The accounting officer of Parliament, who is also the Secretary to Parliament, has invited you to share with you the outcome of the investigative report into the fire or circumstances around the fire incident that happened at the beginning of 2022, that is last year. You'll recall that this report has been spoken about for a while, and there is a commitment that has been made that once Parliament is ready with the report, in the interest of transparency and openness and accountability, we will ensure that this report is made public. And this is that occasion to make it public. The Secretary will also delve into the outcome of an investigation, extensive investigation that was conducted into the administrative or alleged administrative irregularities within the administration of Parliament. So those are the two focus areas that this press conference has been called for. The Secretary of Parliament does not need introduction. He's here to address you on these matters, and that they call you the George, and also accompanied by our Chief Legal Advisor, the Chief Legal Advisor of Parliament, Advocate Zoraya Adekare. My name is Molato Matapo, spokesperson for Parliament, and without any waste of time, I'm going to invite the Secretary to Parliament to present the statement, but also while we do so, we will also share, once he's done, share the copy on the WhatsApp group, the media WhatsApp group, as well as on the emails. Thank you very much, Secretary to Parliament.
I was hoping some of these mics can be Should I leave it down here, or you can put it somehow? Okay.
Can it lie down?
Okay.
There is no space.
No space here. Thank you very much, Program Director, and good afternoon to everyone present, in particular the Chief Whip of the opposition party, the largest opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, Honorable Sivwe Kwahube. If I have missed any other member who may be present, pardon me, I didn't look as far as I could see any member, but I do acknowledge colleagues that I work with in Parliament. I do acknowledge members of the media. And thank you for responding to the invitation of Parliament to provide an update of a matter that no doubt occupies a significant interest in the lives of South Africans. That on a certain day they wake up and realize that the most prized institution of our country, the epitome of what democracy means from an institutional presence, is engulfed on fire. And naturally, every South African, not only Parliament, would ask itself, what happened? What led to this situation? How have we become vulnerable? And what are the things that needs to happen when you experience an event of such magnitude and unprecedented level of attack, not only on the psyche of South Africans, but to the very being of what this institution represents to all of us? I saw reviews like anybody else, like yourselves, of people commenting immediately after the fire, what happened? And the fire raged on a day, the next day, and everybody said, is it under control? What happened? How have we become so vulnerable? And what needs to be done to prevent recurrence of matters of this nature, especially for such a proud institution as Parliament of South Africa, with all its rich history and tapestry of what it represents. Some relief that South Africans also noticed that people who were alleged to be central to the attack on the arsenal were also found immediately and put in custody. A case we commonly know as Mafe case, which is currently running correctly under the auspices of the criminal justice system. But also on the side of Parliament itself, it undertook to also understand its own grounds of vulnerability. What happened? How have we become vulnerable? And so on. So I joined Parliament at a time where these questions were being grappled with. And one of the assignments I was given by the executive authority, and also correctly expressed at the level of the Joint Standing Committee of Parliament that is responsible for overseeing all aspects of governance of the institution, the hallmark of accountability in any institution. So likewise, members of political parties, 14 that we have in the House, also raised the same issue. We need to know what happened. so that remedial measures can then be put in place to attend to those matters so that they are not viewed and brushed aside and not institute measures that will help us to prevent recurrence of those matters. So firstly, I would like to apologize because we set the time at 11 and now we said it's 12, owing to a number of other engagements that I could not avoid. So ladies and gentlemen, I was then asked to undertake the investigation on the fire and also a number of other issues of the organization that were brought through the normal processes of the organization, similar to any other, whether through internal audit and thereby a referral to Audit Committee of Parliament, and also in line with their own mandate to look into matters that they've been brought before them so that there's an objective assessment of what happened and how do we deal with those matters. So there were other matters that, apart from the fire, were also directed at me to deal with, as I am the accounting officer of this premier institution. So we have appeared several times before the Joint Standing Committee of Parliament, either through the quarterly report and mid-term reports, presentation on the annual plan processes, and consistently these matters have been raised. What happened? Either also at the level of Chief Whips Forum, we can see other progress that we are busy with, reconstructing Parliament and also reforming the institution itself. But we are also interested how far these processes are. Today is 18 October, and the institution arrived at a determination that we need to update South Africans on where we are and also share with some of the pertinent recommendations around implementing these matters. So we started the process of looking at these matters and engaged people who are specialized on matters like this, fire and other related aspects. And what I will read is a statement that communicates the outcomes of those processes. I would start with the question of fire. What happens on the fire and how did we arrive at where we are? There is a number of issues that the investigations report have outlined, especially matters of how the minimum physical security standards of Parliament have not been adhered to, and how those, through this process, they enabled that Parliament gets intruded without Parliament even detecting that itself. So a number of issues have been identified. One of those, which everybody now knows, that Parliament for the longest period, probably it would not have thought that it could be violated in the manner in which it is. Just the physical fencing of Parliament, how it did not meet the minimum standards that have been set for an institution that is a national key point. So those issues have been found to be directly contributing to the security breach of Parliament as an institution. So those issues have allowed the person to gain unauthorized access, the suspect, so to speak. And not only that, but to enjoy unrestricted movement within Parliament without being detected for a number of hours beyond a day. There's also the issue, the breach attribution other than the physical aspects, the issues around the investigators determining whether the breach resulted from technological, human resources, or any other deficiencies of Parliament. Now that it's a fact known, it was breached, what will be the breach attributions to be looked into? Was it technological? Was it human? Was it any other deficiency of Parliament? The third area looked at was security enhancement recommendations arising out of those breaches. The investigators were also asked to formulate recommendations to strengthen the overall security protocols and functions of Parliament. They also, in the same process, highlighted a number of crucial findings. The first one is on fire prevention and security breach avoidance. Could we have avoided the fire? Were there issues of a technological nature or infrastructural nature like fire prevention? What the report outlined was that the fire incident could have been prevented. The fire incident could have been prevented had reasonable care been taken to ensure that those drivers of vulnerability do not materialize. One such measure that was also attributed to, I will call it human error or a decision in that regard. One such measure was the decision not to deploy parliamentary protection services officers at night and on public holidays and weekends during 2021-2022 compulsory leave period, which left Parliament vulnerable. On the aspect of systems and maintenance failures, again, extensive investigation was done by experts to look into those failures that were identified even during the preliminary assessment of the fire incident. So what the investigation identified was a range of systems and maintenance failures that significantly contributed to both the security breach and the failure to prevent and contain the fire. These failures encompassed issues such as the height of the perimeter fence, as I've outlined earlier, the absence of perimeter monitoring in terms of physical presence of security. It did not exist at that time, perimeter monitoring. A malfunctioning emergency exit door was also identified on the physical aspects, as well as deficiencies in the fire panels and an unreliable fire management system called REMRAD system. The absence of on-site parliamentary protection services officers further resulted in lack of CCTV monitoring and overall view of the precinct. So in the absence of people, nobody could monitor the CCTV cameras, whether there is attempts to breach and so on. On the critical concerns requiring immediate action, the report underscored pressing concerns that demand prompt attention and rectification. Amongst others, these include non-compliance with established building regulations. I'm sure we would all appreciate that these are historical buildings predating many years, centuries. And when you contrast that with the current regime of legislation that requires OHASA and other issues, our Parliament has consistently not passed the test of full compliance around those matters. So those issues were also picked up from systems and so on. The inadequacies of maintenance practices and shortcomings in the safety, health, and environmental audit. Amongst other things that has also been raised is the absence of a designated head of security for Parliament, the lack of structured security committees that are required for a national key point institution that regularly monitors, oversees adherence to all security policies of Parliament. That did not also exist and or found to be working effectively. The delays in general on the security enhancement project also contributed as critical issues that as we speak, we are currently addressing, and members of the media and members of parliament and staff of parliament would see the work that is being done now to begin to address the detail of the security enhancement of parliament. So other issues we are not waiting, we are actually giving high priority on the issue of security, starting with the appointment of the head of security as stabilization, but also deal with those issues that from a physical and operational capability, we need to heighten the vigilance around parliament on those matters. The fourth area is around heightened vulnerability of the perimeter fence, which I have indicated earlier on, and its detail. Sadly, this matter was flagged, not now, in 2004, and it remained unattended. So this matter was flagged as far back as 2004 by the South African Police Services, and lapses in perimeter monitoring, as I've identified, including incidents where SAPS officers were asked to monitor motion detection cameras and were asleep on those days. The intruder could easily move in and breach the fence of Parliament. So the investigation raised questions regarding SAPS patrol during that period and identified additional complications such as a number of CCTVs that were malfunctioning, the video wall, as well as problematic emergency exit doors that were not working. On the fire safety deficiencies, the investigations revealed pervasive non-compliance with the regulations and requirements across multiple facets, including smoke detectors that were not functioning, the fire alarm panels, emergency notification systems, sprinkler systems, and evacuation route planning that were non-existent. So the structural as well as systematic policy management of what needs to be done to manage a building of this importance could not be done by Parliament. The fire safety deficiencies also indicated, the report indicated that these critical issues constitute a comprehensive slate of what remedial actions that needs to be outlined, and these measures encompass, amongst others, the urgent implementation of recommendations from the BDO report, the security risk assessments that were conducted by SAPS, and the swift appointment of dedicated head of security, which I've already outlined. So SAPS undertook some work further in 2018 around risk assessment, the BDO report, the establishment of active security committee, and the implementation of recommendation from internal audit reports related to security management, and the SHE unit of Parliament, safety, health, and environment priorities. So an exhaustive evaluation of fire compliance for all parliamentary buildings, guided by a qualified fire engineer, will have to be conducted, and a coherent plan will be designed and implemented. That's the key recommendation to deal with the physical aspects, that a detailed and exhaustive evaluation of all parliamentary buildings will have to be undertaken to ensure that we have a coherent plan that will be designed for Parliament and implemented as part of the overall security of Parliament. That's the core thrust of the report on that aspect. On the issue of recommended consequence management, in cases where there would have been breaches attributable to persons who may have been role players and charged with those responsibilities, and so on. In that case, the report recommends that 5 officials were found to be responsible and or implicated in a number of areas that constituted these failures. including failures to implement security policies, failures on compliance, and also ensuring general management of Parliament, including security committees. Regarding the role of other stakeholders, knowing that Parliament on its own is in an institution, that is a national key point, but the principal department responsible for managing these is the Department of Public Works, which many of these things pertain to in terms of physical aspects, and also SAPS on those cases where we have managed. So in those cases of the role of other stakeholders, in the failures that led to the security breach and fire incidents in January, it is recommended that the findings related to their involvement be disclosed in an appropriate forum. Additionally, consequential management and remedial actions will then be determined and taken to address those. The report does make reference to those insofar as those departments and agencies are concerned. So in light of the identified fire safety deficiencies, a comprehensive approach is proposed to rectify these issues, including a rational fire design for our institution, a detailed risk assessment, the enhanced fire safety systems, and regular maintenance by competent contractors. As we know, these issues would require that they be undertaken in a dual way, dealing with the buildings that we have at the moment, but also take into account the reconstruction work of Parliament, so that some of the things that were deficient from a structural design, those matters are attended to as part of the restoration project going forward. Those that can be attended to regardless of restoration will be acted upon, and those that would be part of the restitching of the building, those would also be addressed at that time. On the security enhancements that are also deemed indispensable and are being actively addressed, underscoring their importance to bolster security measures, a significant step already has been established in terms of elevation of the role of the security of Parliament. Instead of it being at a juniorized level, we have now since reviewed the role to make sure that security of Parliament is amplified, elevated, to make sure that reporting accountabilities are commensurate and consistent with the type of organization that Parliament is. So some of these issues around investigations funding, they also underscore the urgency of implementing measures to fortify security and safety protocols within Parliament. The safety and security of Parliament's occupants are paramount, and this action will ensure that the constitutional right of members and staff and any visitors are not compromised. So the development of a detailed security strategy for Parliament will be the task of the Secretary to Parliament and working with the new head of security of Parliament as a matter of urgency. On the areas of further work that was asked by the Audit Committee of Parliament to look at matters related to procurement of Parliament, appointments, and recruitment. And these are matters that predate myself in the institution, but evidently they did require the Audit Committee as an oversight body to direct to the person who now occupies the role to look at those matters that were brought to their attention, either through hotlines, either through labor, and either through walks-in their internal audit. So again, a comprehensive assessment of these matters was done, and there were several concerning trends and issues that came to light, highlighting the need for reforms and stricter adherence to regulations and policies of Parliament. The investigation also delved into 3 critical areas, as I have mentioned, recruitments and appointments and procurement processes. And there were also noteworthy findings that were also picked up around these matters. There were a number of appointments that had concerns that were raised, where a number of officials were appointed without meeting minimum requirements, and that existing employees were also given preferences. And these allegations were raised by whistleblowers as well as NEHAU, the union that also prompted a thorough examination of those matters. The report also focused on recruitment and appointment processes in certain management positions in Parliament. It was found that in some instances, employees did not possess minimum qualifications advertised, and in some cases, they were also not the recommended top-rated candidates. So in that case, about 35 cases were analyzed, and it also revealed that about 11 appointments revealed significant concerns. These concerns highlighted a lack of proper record keeping for documents, recurring patterns of non-compliance, minimum job requirements, and so on, and the use of results in certain instances that showed inconsistencies, and also areas where investigation also identified the appointment of acting officials without necessary qualifications, possibly indicating a reasonable sense of bias towards internal or acting appointments, employee. The recruitment process itself was found to be unfair and prejudicial to other candidates, with some appointments being approved despite these irregularities. That's broadly the summary of those matters. There were also instances where there were strategic positions that were examined around these particular matters, and findings did indicate that there were instances where those breaches were sustained. So given the overlaps amongst these cases, further scrutiny is now required to determine the full extent of involvement of employees of Parliament. In that case, 6 officials have been implicated in various cases. The identified non-compliance on these policies range from HR policies, code of conduct, failure to conduct fair, equitable processes, neglecting to assess suitability of candidates, and so on. But essentially, Parliament's policies and procedures, rules and regulations, what these findings indicate, they underscore the critical need for strict adherence of these policies and the need for policies of Parliament to be reviewed to make sure that they are benchmarked against best practices, but also are suitable for the nature of the institution called Parliament. This work is currently being done by the management of Parliament to go through all policies with the intention to benchmark amongst the best in South Africa and elsewhere, but also to ensure Parliament can retain talent, can attract the best talent, and remain a competitive employer in the labor market space. So the policy review aspects remain very critical around this area, including finalization of the long outstanding of organizational redesign of Parliament, which management of Parliament is deeply engaged on at the moment. On procurement processes, again, a number of issues that were brought to the audit committee also pertained to a number of significant instances of non-compliance with regulations and standards, but notable issues, inconsistent adherence to dates, closing dates of bids, the times, inadequate rotation of bid committee members, lack of controls, identification of service providers in the databases, irregular use of existing contracts, and the absence of legal vetting before procurement. Furthermore, contract extension occurred without specific requirements or regulations guiding price threshold, and there was a lack of oversight in many of these instances on the supply side. On the area of work pertaining to matters that were also brought to the attention of the institutions that were reported is matters pertaining to the legislative sector support that also revealed several instances of non-compliance with critical legislation and regulatory requirements. There has been areas where breaches around financial management of Parliament and supply chain were found, and key areas also issues around fairness, competitiveness, and transparency as required. So the issue of these matters pertain to execution of work that relate to international commitments of grant funding for Parliament from the European Union, and also how our policies are so misaligned, policies of Parliament and policies that needs to be undertaken using the conditional grant of LSS. So policies of Parliament have also been identified that they need to be reviewed because they indicate deficiencies in terms of not ensuring established guidelines are adhered to. To address this, it was recommended that LSS establish and adheres to a formal procurement policy in line with the South African laws. There was also an issue of reliance with the EU procurement rules, which did not align with the South African constitutional and parliamentary requirements. The procurement processes lacked clear procedures, with decisions often reduced to mere noting by the accounting office. No formal database or structured approach to selecting service providers, and no evidence of independent conflict of interest checks or due diligences in examining those. So again, the supply chain management processes of Parliament failed to assist LSS to be able to discharge its responsibilities properly. The report also suggested that a comprehensive assessment of the roles played by officials be undertaken, a comprehensive assessment to determine any accountabilities and identify areas of improvement. These findings also underscore the need for that sector business unit to rectify its non-compliant practices to ensure alignment with legislative and regulatory requirements so that we can safeguard Parliament's financial integrity and reputation. As I've said, all policies of Parliament are currently undergoing review, including all SCM policies, and these will be looked at in that context. In that case, there will be 6 officials that will be engaged further to make sure that these issues are identified as areas of improvement, including any areas where there may be recommendations for accountability. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, these findings emphasize the necessity of revisiting the current procurement regulations of Parliament to make sure that they enhance transparency and accountability. The investigation also highlighted several areas within Parliament's operation that require immediate attention and reform. It underscores the need for stricter adherence to regulation, transparency, and fairness in procurement appointment and procurement. Parliament is committed to addressing these issues promptly and thoroughly to uphold the highest standards that the institution is required to do. The findings also have illuminated critical areas related to security maintenance of Parliament, the safety that demands immediate attention, and remedial measures around that. Furthermore, examination into the Parliament processes around appointment processes, procurement practices, have also exposed significant risk that will require that reforms of policies be done to ensure that there is no inconsistencies on matters of this nature. While transparent accountability remained paramount on the dissemination of detailed investigation report, it is also important to prudently note that Parliament itself needs to protect the ongoing processes and legal consideration and ensure that the safety and security of Parliament's occupants continues to be of paramount importance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Secretary to Parliament. I'm sure, ladies and gentlemen, you will appreciate the extensive nature of the investigation and the time that it would have taken to conduct this investigation, including, as announced by the Secretary, the substantial work that has been done in response to the recommendations or the findings. That sort of explains the time that it has taken for this report to be subjected to extensive scrutiny and to ensure that Parliament is ready on various aspects of it before it can come out as it has done. I'm going to ask that the colleagues from the Parliamentary Communication Services share the statement on the platforms that we normally share these things, and while we are engaging on the report through questions. Thank you very much. I'll take the first round. Just indicate your name, and ideally, if you can ask not so many questions in one at one go, it will assist so that we are able to be fair and comprehensive to deal with those questions and to give others a chance as well. Let me start from the front. Mercedes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Actually, your request is unfair. We've been waiting for this report for a long time. It doesn't really matter how many questions we're going to ask.
Mercedes,
Let me start here. Secretary to Parliament and also to those who did the investigation, do you believe today that if the Parliamentary Protection Services were working that day, Parliament would still be standing? And who took that decision that they should no longer work public holidays as well as on weekends? It was seen. There was nobody here. The report talks about 5 officials who are responsible for the security breaches. Who are those 5 officials? Is it the low-lying, or does it include those in management? And can you tell us what kind of positions they are holding? And what is it that is actually going to happen? For now, I will pause there. So the 5 officials, who does it include? And also, are those the only 5 officials, I don't know if I heard correctly, who may have to face the music as far as security breaches are concerned? Thanks. It's a few questions. Thanks.
About 6 of them from you alone. The next question, who's next? Marianne?
Hi, Marianne Merton from Daily Maverick. Are we clarification, are we getting the actual report? That would be helpful, that would be nice. With regards to the 5 officials, yes, please, will you name them? Have disciplinary proceedings started against them? Some of the delays with that report, what was the process? The report apparently was finished around about February, March this year. What are the reasons for the delay until today? And as part of the report, have you been made aware the 4 SAPS officials against whom an investigation was started? Have you been informed of the outcome of that? Thank you.
Okay, I think about 4 questions from you, if I've captured them correctly. Any other question? Yeah.
Hello, Jan Gerber, News 24. Does the report make any recommendations about the protection of Parliament in terms of parliamentary protection services versus the police? Is it a problem that both Parliament and the police are responsible for the protection of Parliament? Thanks.
One question, and also not only one, but sweet and short. One question. Thank you. And this way.
Good afternoon, I'm Siwe Makinana from the Sunday Times. At our event with the STP at the end of July, when we asked about this report, he said he will have to first table to the Joint Standing Committee on financial management of Parliament. I would like to find out if he has done that, because now he's giving it to journalists.
One question. Thank you. I think that will be enough for the first round. I will ask the Secretary to respond. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Mercedes. Okay. With the rest of others. Marion, you indicated that are we getting the report in terms of the investigation report? I think consistent with any other organization, matters of investigation reports by their owing to a number of issues that always arise. What Parliament is doing is releasing the outcomes of those investigations so that the legal processes are also protected. As you know, there's a criminal process that is ongoing around the fire. And many of the issues that have been raised around that would also pertain to those matters. So on legal advice, reports will not be released, save to indicate that what we have covered is key issues arising out of that. You also ask, are there any disciplinary processes started on the officials? Those are matters that pertain to internal management of consequences, where you establish the extent and whether it warrants that or it doesn't warrant that. So those matters would be considered with careful advice to make sure that we also take into account the various principles of fairness in dealing with matters like this, allowing parties that may be implicated and make sure that those matters are considered. Here we're talking about 28 officials, so it's not an easy issue to consider, and disciplinary consequences in any measure. You might have a number of people who may be implicated, but on determination, it may be that these are just minor breaches of this and this and this and this, and so on. So that's the extent to which a report indicates each division, if it says 5, 6, 4, and so on. So that requires a detailed engagement to make sure that Parliament balances a number of considerations before it could arrive at any of those determination. There is also an issue you raised around have we been informed of the SAPS officials involved and what was the delays. The SAPS officials, there's a process that also SAPS undertook on its own for its own officials. Remember, Parliament has got dual security presence. There's SAPS presence that operate in a certain jurisdiction inside the premise of Parliament, the precinct rather, but also there is parliamentary security that also interfaces with that. So a number of breaches pertain to both those extents of operation, and there would now be an engagement, as I've indicated, with SAPS, but also with Public Works around some of the issues that require their own response structurally to any of those matters. What were the delays between February and up to date? I think we will all appreciate that handling any matter of investigation has a lot of interdependent processes, data gathering, verification, clearance of certain matters, and areas that require that even before you were to put something and say, I think there's a malfunctioning this and that, it had to be done with the level of care and diligence to make sure that those matters are done. Beyond that, you also do quality assurance in terms of legal due diligence of matters of that nature. So viewed collectively, those matters do impact on the total timelines that characterize investigation of this scale. Ben, you have also asked the responsibility of officials of Parliament versus the ones of SAP. I think I have indicated you need to have structural engagements of committees of security of Parliament, and these were found not to be functioning as required in terms of the parliamentary procedures and policies of SAPS. Hence, it required SAPS to examine its own policies and whether there were any breaches on those matters by any officials, as much as Parliament is also doing the same. And you see, has the report been tabled to the Joint Standing Committee? The presiding officers will do that work as their accountability also goes to that level. What they have asked that, given that this report has consistently been asked for, and is a report that they have commissioned, in the meantime, there must be communication of its outcomes to the rest of South Africans and Parliament. But it doesn't substitute that the same detailed report will be given to the Joint Standing Committee in the manner prescribed for accountability in such a structure. Thanks. So we thought you have forgone your... Oh, sorry. Okay. So I can leave that part.
The questions that I've asked, you've answered.
Okay.
Have you answered?
No, I was waiting for you. I was told to jump you. Okay. Do we think that Parliament will still be existing and standing had there been staff of Parliament not on leave, not on forced leave and so on? And the answer is yes, because the detail of the findings point out to those areas, and it did contribute significantly to the vulnerability of Parliament. I did indicate that matters of pointing the extent of people involved and which officials identified is also subject of a further process. So this is merely indicating that when the investigation is done, X number of people may relate to that aspects, but it does not mean that from where we stand we'll be able to say 5 officials are going for consequence management tomorrow. Those processes are part of how Parliament will then undertake further engagements around those matters, including engaging with affected employees, so that the matters are sensitively managed. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Will I be correct to assume that there is no appetite for a second round? Just a clarification. Yes, Marianne?
Sorry, just a clarification. The Secretary to Parliament just said 28 officials. I got confused. I thought earlier he said 5 officials with regards to the security breach, 6 officials with regards to some of the administrative matters. So I need some clarifications where the 28 officials come from. Thank you.
Is there any other question? Andisiwe? Okay, before Andisiwe, let's give Lindsay an opportunity, seeing that it's the first time she asks, and then you'll follow.
Thanks, Mnoto. It's also just a follow-up from the previous question. I just want to understand that you're now saying doesn't mean that 5 implicated officials will automatically face consequence management. What about officials who may be implicated who are no longer in the employ of the institution? Is there any recourse that can be taken in that regard? Thanks.
Thank you very much. And then, Andisiwe?
I would like to find out who did this investigation. Did you get an outside company to investigate this matter? I'd also like to find out from the STP, what has it done since he arrived in Parliament to make sure that Parliament fully complies with the Health and Safety Act in the 12 months you've been here?
Yeah. I think the first one is dealt with in the statement. I think the STP also dealt with it. It's an independent investigation. Okay.
Okay, don't worry, it's my last. So are there some of the officials who still remain on suspension? And then I haven't heard the decision that was taken to put people on forced leave and so on. Why was that decision taken? Those managers who took that decision, was it to save costs or what? Or is it still going to be investigated? And the head of security, how soon or how far is the process? How soon will it be? How soon will it, do you wish to see the new head of security taking over? That's my last, don't worry.
No, I don't
I
have
see
a
you
problem.
harassing me.
I don't have a problem with
Okay.
you. I ask him many questions. I'm used to that,
Done.
and I appreciate that. I just wanted to, the second question, so that the STP can be clear about what he's responding to. Forced leave, where does that come from?
Sorry, he was talking about forced leave when he answered. Okay, let's say
Forced.
let's say we were put on forced leave on that day. Let's not put it like that. Let's say they were the parliamentary protection services were not working. They were not here 24 hours. They were not working that weekend, and they were not working.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
what you are referring to when you say forced leave.
Yeah,
Okay.
he knows what I'm asking because he was talking about that. Thank you.
I thought maybe there was suspension or something. I'm sorry. But the last question was the Chief of Security. We issued a statement announcing the employment of the Chief of Security. The Secretary also dealt with it in the statement. General Shitlhaban is here, is our new Chief of Security. But the rest, they're above my pay grade. I'll give them to the STP.
You should have introduced him.
Okay. I think he is here. He mentioned him. Maybe he can stand so that Mercedes can see him. So is General Samson Shitlhaban. You know Samson in the Bible. So if we, yeah. So we need to move carefully around him so that he doesn't collapse this building. So thank you very much. On the issue, I'll ask the head of legal services to respond on the question of, is there recourse that may be required on officials who have since left Parliament? She will be able to respond to that. Since the STP joined Parliament under Siwe, what has been done on issues of safety and health and other related matters? We have been quite busy on a whole range of issues, contending with the restoration work of Parliament, which work that Parliament is doing for the first time. And you would see that it's quite busy outside. And part of the detailed design work would also entail how do we balance two striking and competing realities, restorative dimension of the project, but also respond to what were the structural limitations that Parliament itself pre-fire faced. So how do you infuse those two aspects in such a way that as you complete the restoration, it gives you a balance on those two factors that Parliament was constrained in many areas, not only in safety and security, but generally on the structural issues. So the investigations did expose all of those issues, and part of that work is to make sure that when the actual work is done, those matters are factored in to make sure that Parliament buildings are protected. There is, of course, ongoing matters around the regular general maintenance and the difficulties that Parliament faces in terms of having dependency on another institution that is responsible for those matters. I remember 3 or 4 months on my arrival, the head of ISISD indicated to me that we have been asking for compliance safety on fire. How many fire hydrants have been checked? What are the issues around that? And those issues were not forthcoming on those matters. And we have had engagements with Public Works to make sure that we can, at least on the ongoing maintenance issues, make sure that those matters that are not within our own purview, they take those into account. So the work we're doing on restoration is not only focusing on the delivery of the reconstruction of the project, but it also talks to total facilities management of Parliament. How do we make sure that we develop a comprehensive total facility management of Parliament to make sure that all these aspects are interwoven together and we're able to manage the institution in a manner that accords with the standard in which we all require it to be managed. We have also, as part of that project, also looked at challenges of members being unable to return to offices. And there's work that has been done, tangible progress reported, and Parliament having completed about 155 offices for members at 90 Plain Street. And we're in engagement with Public Works to make sure that they release further floors that will enable us to complete provisioning of members, including committee rooms. And those are part of the work to make sure that the work of members, both houses, is not impeded for them to undertake their work. And these are the issues we contend with from realities that you have a banned building. You don't have immediate capacity to handle full operational strength. You have to look at other matters. So those are part of ensuring full safety and security, but also deliver on the functioning of Parliament as an institution. So that's the work we are doing around that area. The last area is on what is forced leave. I think many institutions will have a policy like that that would be covered as part of policy provisions of institution, that somebody might have had 33 more days, please take this part, and so on. But what has been determined is that without regard to the nature of the institution that Parliament is, a complete absence of people in a national key point requires that we ought to have managed in a manner that does not compromise the safety of the institution, in line with the question that you asked. Had there been people on the ground, would Parliament be where it is now? And the finding of the answer is no. No. So those are the issues that part of us improving the total security service of Parliament, to make sure that the institution is distinguishable. The security of Parliament needs to be understood and be seen, but also make sure that these incompatibilities of having officials, it might sound very small, that these ones are wearing this, these ones are wearing that. Do they have something that they can communicate with each other if there's an incident of breach somewhere? Do we have functional CCTVs? Do we have functional accountability when they are in office and not in office? What are the things, even if we are to relieve the pressure of the budget of Parliament, what are the decisions that we must take equally safeguarding the interest of Parliament around those matters? Those are balancing management decisions that require careful considerations on matters of this nature. So yes, the issues of safety and security are paramount, and we'll ensure that as we go forward, those matters are strengthened.
Good afternoon. The question was whether there will be processes flowing from the report in respect of employees who have already left or who may leave the institution. The short answer is no. Generally, labour matters are between employer and employee, and the consequences that flow from the outcome of a labour matter can only be implemented if it's employer-employee relationship. However, in circumstances there could be a situation where there's also a breach of the FMPPLA, where there's financial misconduct, and that could have further consequences because the FMPPLA prescribes when an employee or an official is personally liable, and also circumstances when conduct also constitutes criminal liability. Thank you.
I forgot to clarify Marion on the question she asked, 28. I did indicate issues of implications, and in other cases there may be people depending on the nature of the matter that is identified as a breach, and in certain cases it may be a matter that warrants responses from the person, but in other instances it may be a matter of a person who's an employee may have been beneficiary of that outcome, not necessarily them being identified to have breached something, but they would have been found in the overall process. So the issue of 28 speaks to that. But in general, you have about 18 employees who may have to respond on a number of issues that pertain to this process, and how each department then would implement other measures that I have an obligation to look into to make sure that instances where employees may not have breached any matter, those employees are also treated in the most consistent as well as fair manner, without presuming guilt or otherwise on such matters. So the primary consideration is for Parliament to look at the totality of its own vulnerabilities on issues of policies, which we are busy with, issues of structural review to make sure that capacities of Parliament are geared towards servicing the institution, issues of physical security of Parliament, issues of systems of managing facilities of this nature, but general routine management responsibilities that we need to adhere to make sure that our institution is not subjected to these kind of difficulties in the future. And those will be regularly provided and updated so that we continue to aim at improving without necessarily saying the process was about consequence management. The issue was about how did Parliament itself found itself where it was, how do we ensure accountability to governing structures of Parliament when they ask us to do certain things, and how to use that to make sure that we strengthen the institution overall, at the same time improving the quality of offerings by an institution of our caliber.
No, thank you very much, Secretary to Parliament. I think we have detained you long enough. We know that we have taken you from covering your committees, and I thought that it would be fair that we release you. One question. Okay. One question for the third round.
You're not going to kick us out of Parliament, the media, ne?
Huh?
You're not going to kick the media out of Parliament.
It depends on how you are going to behave from now on.
Thank you, Moloto. My question relates to the second aspect of what you were talking about, irregular appointments. There's been a Sunday Times report about your own appointment to this institution. Do you have any comment on that? And would you be open to that appointment or conditions of service being audited?
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
I think I knew that third round was not a good idea. I think the matter, we are always ready to deal with any matter in the interest of transparency and openness. As you will be aware, the Secretary does not recruit himself, does not appoint himself, he does not determine his conditions of service himself, compensation himself. So I don't think it is fair for him to give an opinion on those matters. I think those who are correctly positioned to deal with those matters will deal with them at appropriate time. Parliament has already issued a very comprehensive statement on the matter, and Parliament will be continuously dealing with those matters. Thank you very much. Let's release you to go and continue with covering the committees. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you, Secretary to Parliament, Advocate Adikari. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chief Whip of the Official Opposition. Thank you very much, members of the media, colleagues in the senior management and staff. Thank you very much. The media briefing is adjourned.